fury over ICE raids in Los Angeles boils over into these protests all weekend long and violence the last few days. Confrontations between law enforcement and protesters on the streets lasting late into the night. Cars set on fire. You had projectiles lobbed at officers and police responding with tear gas, rubber bullets, and flashbangs.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's been shaking up Los Angeles and making headlines across the nation. The recent immigration raids, the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops, and the protests that have turned parts of the city into a battleground of ideas, emotions, and tear gas. This is a complex issue with a lot of layers, so let's break it down, look at the facts, and explore what's really going on. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. It all started on Friday, June 6, 2025, when federal agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, along with other agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and even the DEA, launched what's been described as military-style raids across Los Angeles. These weren't your average operations. We're talking camouflage-clad agents sweeping through workplaces like the Garment District, a Home Depot parking lot, and even a donut shop, targeting people suspected of immigration violations and using fraudulent documents. By the end of the first day, over 40 people were detained, and by the end of the week, that number climbed to 118. The American Civil Liberties Union pointed out something concerning. Many of these arrests were made without judicial warrants, raising questions about legality and due process. Now, Los Angeles is a city with a massive Latino population, many of whom are undocumented, so it's no surprise that these raids hit hard. Communities were thrown into panic. Imagine going to work at a warehouse or picking up supplies at Home Depot, only to see armored vans and agents in riot gear rounding people up. Social media and immigrant advocacy networks spread the word fast, and by Friday afternoon, hundreds of protesters were gathering outside the Edward R. Roybal Federal Building, where detainees were being processed. They were chanting, "Set them free, let them stay," and waving Mexican flags, demanding an end to what they saw as cruel and oppressive tactics. The protests didn't stop there. By Saturday, June 7th, things escalated. Demonstrations spread to places like Paramount, a heavily Latino city south of LA, and Compton. Protesters blocked major roads, including the 101 freeway, and some even set cars and pallets on fire. Videos online show chaotic scenes, smoke rising, fireworks being shot at law enforcement, and protesters throwing rocks and eggs at federal agents. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and LAPD were called in to manage the unrest, using tear gas and flashbang grenades to disperse crowds. It was intense, and the tension was palpable. Then came the big move that's got everyone talking. On Saturday night, President Donald Trump signed a presidential memorandum deploying 2,000 California National Guard troops to Los Angeles. This wasn't a request from the state. It was a federal order, something that hasn't happened without a governor's consent since 1965. Trump called the protesters violent mobs and rioters on his Truth Social platform, saying that if California Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass couldn't handle the situation, the federal government would step in to solve the problem, riots and looters, the way it should be solved. He even went as far as saying protesters wouldn't be allowed to wear masks, and his border czar, Tom Homan, warned that interference with immigration enforcement wouldn't be tolerated. By Sunday morning, June 8th, National Guard troops were on the ground, stationed around federal buildings like the Metropolitan Detention Center. Clashes continued, with protesters chanting "shame" and "go home" at the troops, who stood shoulder to shoulder with riot shields and long guns. Tear gas was fired, and police declared unlawful assemblies, leading to more arrests. The scenes were straight out of a movie: burning vehicles, crowds facing off with armed guards, and a city on edge. Now, let's talk about the backlash. California's Democratic leadership was not having it. Governor Newsom called the National Guard deployment unlawful and purposefully inflammatory, arguing it would only escalate tensions and erode public trust. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass echoed that, calling the raids a deliberate attempt to sow terror in a city of immigrants. She pointed out that neither she nor the LAPD were informed about the ICE operations beforehand, which added to the chaos. Former Vice President Kamala Harris, a Californian herself, called the deployment a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. Even California's Lieutenant Governor and Senator Alex Padilla jumped in, with Padilla accusing Trump of using the raids and guard deployment as a distraction from other political moves. The protests themselves are fueled by more than just the raids. A senior law enforcement source told CNN that some demonstrators are motivated by broader anti-government sentiment, and there's even talk of professional rioters stirring the pot. Whether that's true or not, it's clear the deployment of federal troops has turned this into a political lightning rod. For many in LA's Latino communities, especially in places like Paramount, which is over 80% Hispanic, this feels personal. People are scared, hiding in businesses, afraid to step outside. What's next? ICE has hinted that more raids are coming, not just in LA but across the country. Protesters are planning to keep mobilizing, with groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation calling for mass action to push back against ICE. Meanwhile, this situation raises big questions. Where's the line between enforcing immigration laws and protecting human rights? Is deploying the National Guard a step too far, or a necessary response to unrest? And how will this play out in a city as diverse and complex as Los Angeles? I don't have all the answers, but one thing's clear. This is a defining moment, and people are watching closely. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. We're always digging into the stories that matter, so ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. Drop a comment below. What do you think about what's happening in LA? Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.